Hey guys, tonight we're plunging headfirst into a world of incense paper charms and questionable undead etiquette. It's the Tang Dynasty and you're a ghost hunter. Not the flashy sword-swinging kind with enchanted tigers or divine swords forged in starlight. No, you're the budget variety equipped with a leaking gourd paper talismans you made yourself and a rooster with a chronic attitude problem. This morning, let's just say it starts with a bang. You jolt awake not to the crow of your rooster, but to the sound of it retching. Yes, Fang, your rooster and part-time spiritual compass is gagging beside your sleeping mat. You lurch upright in your small wooden room eyes, bleary incense ash smeared on your sleeves from last night's half-finished protection ward. Fang coughs up something that looks suspiciously like ghost slime. You groan. Today's already going downhill, and your monthly ghost banishment quota is still 6 souls short. Bureaucracy in the supernatural gig economy is relentless. You vaguely recall that you're behind because you spent half the week trying to de-haunt an opera mask that turned out to just be poorly lacquered. You throw on your robe patched at the knees and one sleeve burned from a cursed lantern incident and shove open your window. The sky is gray, sticky with humidity. A bad omen. Rain means spirits will be restless. It also means your socks will be perpetually damp for the next 12 hours. Fang, you mutter, scooping up the feathered disaster and placing him on the windowsill. No more ghost gunk before breakfast. He squawks. You can't tell if it's agreement or a veiled threat. As you stretch your back sore from sleeping on the floor again, you remember the dream. Something about red lanterns and a woman with no eyes. You shake it off. Dreams don't mean much unless they do, and you're too tired to decode omens on an empty stomach. You lurch into the courtyard to wash your face in the stone basin. The water's icy, and you splash generously trying to shake off the sticky fingers of sleep. On your shoulder, a tiny specter flits by just a dust ghost. You flick a talisman at it on instinct. It pops like a soap bubble. 1 down, 5 to go. Inside again, you glance at your 2 exercise list scratched on bamboo slats. A widow's latrine, a haunted cat, and someone's father-in-law refusing to reincarnate out of spite. You sigh and start sorting your gear. There's your gourd of ghost-binding rice wine half full, your bag of talismans most smudged, your bronze mirror for banishing reflection spirits still cracked from that incident with the scholar's house last month, and a fistful of hen feathers the real MVPs. A loud creak interrupts your inventory session. You turn. It's your neighbor Old Jong who rents the hut next door and occasionally dies from boredom before returning for dumplings. You still alive? He grunts, eyeing you skeptically. Barely, you reply, brushing ash off your sleeve. Fang tried to vomit up a ghost again. Happens to the best of us, he nods sagely. You got plans today? You gesture to your list. Ah, he nods. Typical Thursday. Historians still argue whether the Tang Dynasty's tolerance of spiritual professionals like yourself was more superstition or state policy. On paper, you're technically a clerical sanitation agent. In practice, you're that weird neighbor who talks to firewood and sprinkles ash on his dumplings for protection. Back inside, you grab a bamboo scroll sent by the local temple. It's stamped with red ink and smells like pickled plums. A formal complaint about a spirit haunting the West Alley again. Probably the one you thought you'd handled last week. Ghosts are notoriously petty. You throw the scroll into your gear bag strap on your sandals still damp from last night's fieldwork and grab a sweet bun from the table. It's stale, but calories are calories. Just as you're about to leave, you glance at your shrine 3-jaw sticks, a bowl of rice, and your grandmother's comb. You light 1 stick and whisper a prayer half out of habit, half out of desperation. The flame flickers sideways. Yep, you sigh. Definitely going to be one of those days. One last thing, you scribble a charm for minor protection against falling bricks and angry exes and shove it into your sleeve. You've learned the hard way never to underestimate either. Rooster secured mirror half cleaned and dignity in tatters, you step out into the misty morning air. Another day in the life of a budget ghost hunter begins. And honestly, you probably won't survive this. You trudge down the muddy path behind your hut, trying not to step in what you hope is just leftover dumpling broth. Your first stop isn't a haunted temple or screaming alley. It's your laundry line, because apparently the spirits have developed a taste for underpants. You frown at the flapping clothes. 2 pairs of socks are gone again. A shredded sleeve hangs like a ghostly banner from the bamboo pole. You inch closer, fingers twitching toward the talisman tucked behind your ear. Then you see it, a faint shimmer like heat rippling off a walk. A mischievous P-Fang, a low-level spirit with a foot fetish and bad timing. It's sniffing your sock. Seriously, you groan. There are temples for this kind of thing. You whisper a quick chant and flick a chicken feather, striking it right in its ectoplasmic nose. The spirit sneezes itself into a blur of smoke, disappearing with a noise like someone slapping tofu. Laundry exercised. Sort of. Now you have to reapply the paper charms to your drying rack. You pull a small lacquered box from your satchel. Inside folded talismans, each inked by hand the night before, with burnt cinnabar and globs of your own blood. Just a finger prick, but still this job has no HR department. As you press one charm onto the clothesline, you recite the binding lines aloud. Paper to wind ink to flame, keep my socks from being claimed. It's a rough translation of a classic Tang incantation. Scholars still argue whether these chants were symbolic or genuinely believed to summon divine attention. You don't argue. You just want dry socks. Charm after charm, you attach them with bamboo pins, muttering variations of, "Stay away, not yours." And I really need this robe to last one more month. Your handwriting is barely legible, but hey, ghosts aren't picky about penmanship. Next up, folding talismans for the day's encounters. You sit cross-legged on a cracked stone bench and unfold a fresh sheet of yellow mulberry paper. The ink is thick and gloppy, too humid today. You dip your brush, the one with boar hair bristles, and begin sketching. Circles, lines, little squiggles that look like a spider threw up after calligraphy class. Every shape has meaning. Some summon minor spirits to assist you like tiny spectral interns. Others explode on contact with dark energy, useful but messy. Your favorite is the mild inconvenience ward, which makes a ghost mildly itchy for 12 hours. Highly underrated. As you fold each charm with care, you whisper names of mountain gods and river spirits under your breath. The sun creeps higher. A neighbor walks by, glancing at you with the same unease one reserves for people who talk to vegetables. You pause only once to stretch your back, which sounds like someone stepping on a bamboo flute. You're not even 30, but ghost hunting ages you in weird places. Fang the rooster wanders nearby, scratching the dirt. Occasionally he pecks at something invisible, then glares at you as if to say, "You missed one." You glance at your tally slate. Still 5 ghosts to go. You're hoping the marketplace is productive. Hauntings are seasonal, and summer is peak ghost activity. Time heat makes everyone irritable, even the dead. You wrap the finished talismans in a bundle of dry lotus leaves, then tuck them carefully into your satchel. Next to them, a stick of incense, a scrap of red thread, and a polished brass coin etched with a tiger's face, your just-in-case kit. Just as you're getting up, a breeze rolls in, stirring the leaves and setting one of your charms fluttering. It lands in your palm. The ink has smeared slightly, leaving the characters warped like they're melting. You frown. Definitely rain coming. And possibly worse, you don't have the luxury of delaying. Every ghost you don't deal with today is one more likely to follow you home. Or worse, one that reports you to the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. They're not forgiving even to their own. Back inside for a quick repack? You grab your small box of incense, carefully selecting one stick soaked in dragon's blood resin, actually from a rare tree, not a dragon. But don't tell the marketing monks that. The smell is sharp, metallic, like burnt cherries and iron. It'll keep lesser spirits at bay for half an hour. You also tuck in your emergency banana. Not magical, just a snack. Before you leave, you glance once more at your altar. The joss stick has burned halfway down ash, curled like a question mark. You mutter a quiet goodbye to whatever ancestral spirit happens to be listening. Your grandmother, probably. She was a fierce woman, scared off 2 poltergeists in her time, using only a ladle and a death glare. As you step outside, you feel the heavy press of humidity against your skin, thick as steamed buns. The charm on your doorframe flutters, once, then stills. Daylight ghosts are tricky, they're subtle, clever. But you're ready. You've got a satchel full of folded paper, a rooster who might be cursed, and a reputation for creatively resolving hauntings with minimum paperwork. Let's go ruin a ghost day. You leave the village behind your sandals, squelching in soft mud as you follow the cracked stone path toward the edge of the lower market. The air smells like damp earth, sour tofu, and the faint promise of rain. Fang hops along beside you occasionally, flapping up to perch on your shoulder like a grumpy, feathery pirate. You're halfway to your destination when you feel it. A chill, like a finger running along the nape of your neck. Not enough to alarm, but just enough to notice. Something's watching. You turn slowly. Nothing but the rustle of bamboo groves and a cat licking its paw under a shrine gate. But then you hear it. A low whisper, unintelligible and breathy, trailing along the wind, like someone mumbling behind a curtain. You glance up, and there she is. Your grandmother, hovering faintly translucent in the morning light, arms crossed and face unimpressed as ever. "Still no wife," she says. "Good morning to you too," you reply, not missing a step. She drifts along beside you as if borne on a lazy breeze. Her robes are Tang-era modest, simple but dignified, with a faint scorch mark near the hem remnants from the cooking oil fire she always denied starting. "I raised you better than this," she says, peering disapprovingly into your satchel. "That talisman is upside down." "It's supposed to be upside down. It's a reverse warding charm." She doesn't look convinced. You love your grandmother, but she's dead. And also kind of bossy. Still, it's not uncommon for ghost hunters to have familial spirits lingering about. In fact, mainstream Tang belief encouraged ancestor interaction. Many households left out daily offerings of tea rice or pig ear slices. Historians still argue whether these rituals were spiritual communication or just extremely respectful leftovers management. You've long since accepted her presence. It's either comforting or mildly embarrassing depending on the company. Today, it's breakfast. You duck into a small noodle stall along the southern lane where the owner greets you with a familiar nod. You wave off the menu, he knows your order. Within minutes, he sets down a steaming bowl of millet porridge garnished with pickled radish-dried anchovies and a soft-boiled egg. A drizzle of sesame oil finishes the dish. Breakfast of champions, or at least slightly tired mystics with chronic back pain. You slurp your first spoonful, exhaling through your nose. Warm, salty, comforting. Then you hear it. "You forgot the vinegar." Your grandmother again. Floating behind the counter, rearranging condiment jars the owner can't see. You groan, reaching for the vinegar flask. As you eat, another ghost glides in through the side alley, a skinny man with a wispy beard and the telltale glow of the recently deceased. He floats near a stray dog, absently offering it invisible treats. The dog ignores him. You know better than to interact unless invited. Ghosts hate being seen when they're not ready. Like bumping into your ex while wearing pajamas. The stall owner doesn't notice, but he does notice you side-eyeing the spirit. "That's the third one this morning," he mutters, wiping down a table. "City's getting thick with 'em." You nod. He's not wrong. The closer you get to Ghost Festival season, the thinner the veil becomes. Hungry spirits rise early. Some just want dumplings. Others want vengeance. Or socks. You finish your porridge and leave a coin behind, plus a folded talisman under the bowl. A small thanks, also a subtle pest deterrent. Ghosts love soup. Outside the road curves toward the center of the district where the old shrine sits. Fang hops off your shoulder and starts digging near the roadside. You follow his lead. Find something, you ask. He screeches once and pecks at the dirt. You kneel and brush it aside, revealing a faded joss paper curled and scorched. It's a spirit contract. The ink's barely legible, but you can make out a few characters: Liang, binding, tea debts. Tea debts, you sigh. Someone made a poorly executed offering. Probably a family trying to buy off an angry uncle's spirit with underpriced oolong. It backfired. These things need specificity. Offer too little and you offend. Offer too much and they linger out of guilt. You pocket the paper and recite a quick neutralizing chant. Nothing flashy, just enough to erase the lingering spiritual charge. Up ahead, your grandmother's spirit hovers near a tree, peering into a bird's nest. She waves you over. "There's a ghost in there," she whispers. You approach cautiously and peek into the nest. 3 tiny eggs, all intact. Nest woven with twigs, feathers, and a piece of funeral ribbon. Ghost birds. Lovely. Not dangerous, but definitely creepy. You murmur a short poem of dispersion. The eggs shimmer and vanish, leaving behind only the twigs. "That one's on you," Grandma says. "You left that ward half-burnt last solstice." "I had food poisoning, you argue." She shrugs. "So did the ghost bird." You're about to retort when a breeze cuts through the alley, thick with incense and faint chanting. A procession is passing nearby, monks from the hill temple, walking barefoot and reciting scripture, trailing bells and small censers. You pause, watching them glide by. Some hold parasols. One is carrying a goose. You don't ask. Back in your day-to-day, you still have a job to do. You tighten your satchel, adjust your mirror, and check your rooster, who is now napping inside a hanging lantern. Good enough. As you step into the narrow market street that leads to the haunted food stalls, Your stomach full and your blood buzzing slightly from that last spicy radish, you brace yourself. There's still a grave cleaning to do, but for now, it's you, a crowd of spirits pretending not to be noticed, and the smell of dumplings that may or may not have been cooked by the undead. Just another Tang Dynasty morning. You arrive at the heart of the lower market, a cluttered, pulsating vein of Tang Dynasty life where the living and the dead shop side by side, mostly pretending the other doesn't exist. Stalls crowd the narrow alleys like mushrooms after rain. Baskets overflow with lychees, lotus roots, spiny bitter melons, and glistening chunks of dried squid. Hawkers yell over one another about freshest duck tongues in Luoyang and eel oil guaranteed to repel in-laws. You walk carefully. Not because of the crowd, but because this is a hotspot for low-level hauntings. Marketplace ghosts love drama. They feed on resentment buyers' remorse and the occasional dumpling-related betrayal. Your first clue that something's amiss: a tofu cart levitating about 6 inches off the ground. You sigh. Not again. This particular tofu vendor has a reputation. He underweighs his bricks, waters down his soy, and once sold you a haunted rice cake as a limited seasonal blessing. So naturally, he's become a ghost magnet. You nudge through the crowd, ignoring the clamor of someone advertising discount fortune chickens, and make your way to the tofu stall. The vendor, a short man with a suspiciously clean apron, sees you and immediately starts sweating. "Oh ho, my favorite esteemed ghost dispeller," he greets you too loudly. "How may this humble, honest tofu man serve?" "Cut the performance," you mutter. Your cart is floating. He blinks. "Oh, must be the wind." There's no wind. You crouch and inspect the space beneath the cart. A spectral hand, pale and twitching, presses up from the cobblestones. The ghost is trying to flip the cart. You gently slap a talisman onto the wooden wheel. The hand lets out a frustrated moan and retreats, and the cart thunks back down with a satisfying squish. The crowd doesn't react. Most people here have adopted the traditional Tang coping mechanism. If you ignore it, maybe it'll haunt someone else. You shoot the vendor a glare. You need to stop skimping on funeral donations. Word gets around. He nods rapidly. "Of course, I will burn twice the usual joss paper 3 times. 3 times, absolutely." You walk away before he can haggle. Historians still argue whether marketplaces in the Tang capital cities were truly integrated with spiritual customs, or if accounts of spectral sightings were embellished by nervous pilgrims. You've seen enough levitating produce to confirm it's real, and it's often petty. Feng hops beside you, glancing back with mild disdain at the tofu cart. You reward him with a pickled plum from your sleeve. Further in, you pass the spice vendor, a grizzled woman who sells powdered deer horn and incense ash by the gram. She waves, then discreetly shows you her left arm now covered in hives. "Night demon in the chili bin," she whispers. I didn't make eye contact, but it pinched me. You sigh, duck behind her stall, and mutter a dispersal phrase over the bin. It emits a faint wail and goes still. Chili demons are tiny, but mean like haunted hornets with a paprika addiction. As thanks, she hands you a sachet of 5 fragrance powder. "Hang this in your room," she says. "Might keep your grandmother from reorganizing your altar." You raise an eyebrow. You can see her. Everyone can. She's judgmental. As you pass the fishmonger's stall, you notice a familiar stench, not of fish, but of regret. A teenage ghost with smeared makeup and a fraying wedding robe floats mournfully near the squid buckets. She notices you and flutters over. "Have you seen my husband?" she asks, as she always does. "No," you reply gently. "You never got married, remember?" She blinks slowly, then fades into the crowd again. You make a mental note to visit her grave soon and straighten her tablet. Sometimes the dead just need small gestures to move on. You push deeper into the market toward your actual objective, the Jade Talisman booth. It's manned by a monk with dyed eyebrows and questionable taste in sandals. He greets you with a smirk. Looking for something real or just shiny this time, you raise an eyebrow. "You sold me a haunted gourd last week that turned out to be a cracked sack jug." "It was haunted," he says. Just politely. You scan the table. Rows of jade pendants, spirit thread rings, and pocket mirrors lie in neat lines, each tagged with impossible claims. Banishes ex-boyfriends, prevents toe cramps, makes ancestors proud. One charm catches your eye, a crescent-shaped stone with a gold thread binding. It hums faintly. "What's this one do?" "Supposedly summons a thunder sprite," he says, "but also works as a nice paperweight." You buy it anyway. Might come in handy, might not. Either way, it's shiny, and you need something to distract from the damp chicken feathers sticking out of your robe. Just as you turn to leave, a low boom echoes through the marketplace. People freeze. A basket of apples topples on its own. Another boom. Then silence. You know that sound. Tomb resonance. Something's been disturbed. You glance down the alley where the sound came from. A group of kids run past giggling and covered in soot. Grave sweeping one of them shouts, "Found a bone fantastic." You tighten your satchel and march toward the source. The market murmurs behind you, returning to business as usual. The tofu vendor is already trying to sell haunted specials at a discount. Ghost hunters don't get breaks, especially not when kids are poking around tombs they really shouldn't be. Let's go clean up someone else's mess. You reach the outskirts of the market, where paved stone yields to packed dirt, and the vibrant noise of commerce gives way to chirping insects and far-off bird calls. Tomb-sweeping territory, also known unofficially as Freelance Haunting Central. The kids have already vanished their soot-smudged footprints leading into the low hills beyond the bamboo grove. You follow your sandals crunching against old leaves, Fang trotting behind you like a tiny judgmental bodyguard. Grave cleaning isn't glamorous. It's not the high-flying, spirit-blasting part of the job, but it's essential. Neglected graves lead to bitter ghosts. Bitter ghosts lead to flying pots, crying babies, and if you're really unlucky, dream possession. You don't want to wake up speaking fluent Phoenician again. That was awkward at the registry office. The hill rises gently. Terraced burial plots line the slope, some marked with elegant stone lions, others with wilted paper lotuses and tea bowls full of rainwater and drowned ants. You spot the disturbed grave right away, an overturned incense pot, scattered offerings, and a small pile of bones resting neatly on a child's tunic. Fang squawks. You echo his sentiment. You kneel beside the tombstone, brushing moss from its face. The name is faded, but still legible: Liangjung, former court scribe. You exhale. Scribes are notoriously cranky ghosts. All that writing, none of the credit. No wonder they stick around. You gather the scattered bones, none of them human, thankfully. A chicken, maybe, or a really unlucky goose. The kids likely pried open a small ancestral box looking for treasure. Instead, they found an avian offering meant to appease Uncle Liang. You chant softly as you replace the items, setting the incense upright, tucking the ribbon back into its ceremonial knot, and laying a fresh talisman across the lid. Midway through, the air shifts. Cold. Still. Electric. You glance up. A figure stands among the trees, a translucent man with a scroll tucked under one arm, ink stains on his robes, and a frown that could curdle milk. "Uncle Liang, I presume," you murmur, rising slowly. The ghost narrows his eyes. "Those children I know you interrupt. They meant no harm. Just curious. They moved my quill." "I'll fix it." You do. You open the tomb's small alcove and place the reed quill exactly as it once was, left slanted, tip down, pointing northeast. Ghosts are particular. He watches you closely. You're not temple clergy. Nope, you say freelance, union adjacent. You smell like fish sauce. Ghosts like it, you shrug. Uncle Liang pauses. Then, surprisingly, he sighs. A deep, rickety sound like an old wooden desk settling. I suppose, he mutters, this is the price of immortality. You're not sure if he's being philosophical or just dramatic, but you nod sympathetically either way. Then you offer him a chance. Would you like me to help you pass on? I've got a very nice chant and a spicy rice cake with your name on it. Not yet, he says, fading slightly. The Bureau still hasn't published my last treatise on imperial punctuation. You blink. You've been dead for 113 years. Bureaucracy, he mutters, vanishing completely. Well, that's one ghost who's definitely not crossing over anytime soon. You pat the grave once, whisper an apology to the ancestors, and place a chicken feather beside the incense just in case he changes his mind. As you move on to the next grave, you're interrupted by a familiar voice. Turf's taken. You turn to see her Taoyan, your oldest rival in the ghost hunting scene. Her robe is brighter than yours, her staff shinier, and her smug smile deeply punchable. Tomb's clean, you reply, gesturing casually. No one claimed it. I did verbally. Yesterday. To a squirrel. That doesn't count. She folds her arms. You always take the good ones. Uncle Liang thinks punctuation is more important than passing on. I'm not sure that's good. She smirks. You used the feather trick again, didn't you? Works every time? Tao Yan's presence reminds you that this work isn't all incense and gratitude. It's a business. And competition for hauntings is fierce, especially with the Ghost Festival approaching. Everyone wants their quotas met, their bonuses handed out, and their spiritual credit balance kept positive. You could file a turf complaint, but the paperwork would take a week, so instead you gesture to the next hill. Graves up there are all yours. She eyes you suspiciously, but shrugs. Fair enough. Then she reaches into her robe and pulls out a folded piece of silk. Oh, she says casually, by the way, heard Widow Lee's latrine ghost is acting up again? Of course it is. She asked for me, but I'm busy. Thought you could handle it? You groan. The Widow Lee job is a disaster every time. The ghost isn't dangerous, just moody and has opinions about plumbing. Sure, you mutter because my afternoon wasn't already full of mildly cursed poultry and poetry-obsessed ancestors. Tao Yan's smile is dazzling. Break a feather. As she saunters off, you collect your gear, toss one last pinch of incense onto Uncle Liang's altar, and start heading toward the village outskirts. It's almost midday. The sky has turned a silvery white, thick with clouds, and the first raindrops begin to tap at your sleeves. Fang fluffs up unimpressed. You can almost hear him thinking, you should have stayed in herbal medicine. Maybe. But then you wouldn't have that strange satisfaction, the quiet knowledge that even in a world filled with half-glimpsed spirits, soggy paper charms, and passive-aggressive ghosts, you're still needed. And probably slightly cursed. You trudge back into town just as the drizzle turns to a steady drizzle plus. Not quite a storm, not quite a mist, just enough rain to soak the corners of your robe and make every stone slippery. Fang takes shelter in your hood, his little claws digging in for grip like he's auditioning to be a haunted hair accessory. You squish your way through side alleys toward your least favorite place in the city, the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, or as you affectionately call it, the Office of Spiritual Delays and Passive-Aggressive Scrollwork. The bureau is housed in an old temple building halfway reclaimed by ivy and administrative incompetence. Red pillars lean at suspicious angles. Rain leaks through the stone roof. A faint hum of annoyed chanting radiates from inside. You push the heavy door open with your shoulder. It creaks like it's tired of existing. Inside, the scent hits you damp incense, wet paper, and a subtle undercurrent of pickled yam. The reception ghost floats behind the desk, translucent and irritable. His name is Mr. Shen, and he died in the Tang Dynasty. No one told him he could stop working. Name, he says, without looking up. You know who I am. Everyone says that Mr. Shen replies, dipping a ghostly brush into a pot of spectral ink. I filed the paperwork about the East Alley haunting, you say, unrolling a damp scroll from your sleeve. You said it'd be processed by Tuesday. Mr. Shen sighs and points at the complaint queue wall where dozens of names are pinned under wooden charms that pulse red when the file is active. Your name, flickering orange, still waiting on the stamp from the Department of Internal Ghost Affairs, he mutters. They're in the same building, you hiss. He shrugs. Different windows, different realities. This right here is why ghosts linger. Not grief, not revenge paperwork. Historians still argue whether the Tang bureaucracy modeled its ghostly departments on the civil administration, or if it was the other way around. Either way, the result is the same endless forms, contradictory policies, and rules about whether a spirit haunting more than 5 goats qualifies as semi-sentient. You navigate around a line of disgruntled spirits waiting for consultation. There's a river god with algae in his beard, a demon carrying a live chicken you don't ask, and a minor dragon filling out a damage claim for cloud theft. You slip into a side chamber labeled Spiritual Offense Review. Inside, a half-asleep monk sits on a tatami mat snoring into a stack of bamboo slats. You clear your throat. I need authorization for a rooftop exorcism, you say? He snores louder. You poke him with the back end of your rooster feather fan. He jerks awake, blinks at you, and mutters, Do you have Form 88B? You blink. That doesn't exist. Exactly. He nods solemnly and goes back to sleep. You're just about to storm out when a familiar whisper tickles your ear. Did you bring me the receipt for last week's blessing? Oh no, him. You turn slowly to face the junior inspector, a pale, self-important ghost named Be-On. He died in a seal-related accident, not the animal the wax kind, and has been aggressively pedantic ever since. Technically, he says floating inches off the ground you forgot to close the post-cleansing reconciliation document for the Scholars Library haunting. I gave you dumplings. Unstamped dumplings, he says, with all the enthusiasm of a tax form, improperly wrapped. You reach into your sleeve, pull out a crumpled receipt from a noodle stall, and slap a chicken feather on it. Here. Blessed and accounted for. He squints. That's from a fishball vendor? Close enough. He frowns clearly, wanting to protest, but then sighs and files it away with a flick of his sleeve. Next time, include the boiling temperature. Spirits respond better to well-documented steam. You finally make it to the back room where the field assignment board is located. It's a mess of ink-streaked notes dangling talismans and burntwood tags inscribed with ghost names. One tag is glowing faint blue: your next assignment. Rain-soaked rooftop, screaming ghost. Property damage probable. Of course it is. You grab the tag and head toward the exit. On your way out, the river god tries to sell you algae repellent. You decline, but he throws in a sample packet anyway. It smells like old socks and destiny. Back outside, the rain's picked up. You squint toward the rooftops across the district where flickers of white light dance like angry candle flames. Rooftop spirits? You hate rooftop spirits. They're slippery, melodramatic, and have a penchant for pushing people off edges. Fang shakes out his feathers, sensing trouble. You shake out your robe, sensing a headache. One last thing, you scribble your name on the sign-out talisman hanging by the bureau door. It glows briefly, marking you as on duty. Then you mutter, "Better not fall off anything today," and step back into the rain. The spirits are calling, and your sandals are already soaked. The rain has decided it hates you. It's coming down in sheets now, soaked through your robes, bleeding the ink from the talisman stitched to your shoulder, and turning every alley into a slapstick death trap of moss puddles and loose tiles. Fang has relocated from your hood to your satchel, muttering low, offended clucks. You can almost hear him thinking, "You had one job, don't get rained on." You reach the building in question, a narrow 2-story tea house sandwiched between a fortune teller's shack and a questionable dentistry clinic. A man waves frantically from the doorway, shouting over the downpour. "She's back," he yells, wailing like the emperor's concubine during tax season. You give him a thumbs up and scale the side stairs slippery with wet moss and old fear until you reach the roof. There she is, a translucent woman draped in dripping silk's hair matted across her face, crouched on the edge of the roof like a forgotten marionette. Her sobs echo into the storm, long and shrill like a flute being emotionally blackmailed. You don't approach immediately. You've done this dance before. Weeping spirits are often caught in feedback loops, reliving the worst moment of their lives on repeat. Interrupt them too soon, and they react badly, usually with thrown tiles or poetic insults. Instead, you sit down on the soggy roof tiles cross-legged and light a stick of dragon's blood incense. You hold it aloft until the smoke begins curling in slow spirals, dancing in a way no wind should allow. The spirit notices. Her wails falter. One eye peeks out from behind her hair. "Did he come back?" she rasps. You recognize the story now? The jilted bride. She'd waited on this rooftop for 3 days before realizing her beloved had eloped with her younger cousin. Tragic, overdone, and very inconvenient in a high rainfall district. Not yet, you reply carefully. "But I have a message for you." She tilts her head, suspicious. "From him, sort of you," say, pulling out a folded charm inked earlier this morning. You unfold it slowly and recite the lines "Mountain meets sea and river meets stone. Let your sorrow pass and find your own." It's a burial poem. Short, sad, and legally acceptable for emotional hauntings. She blinks slowly, drifting upright. The storm seems to pause as she hovers over the edge of the roof, hovering in the space between lightning and sigh. Historians still argue whether poetic rites like this had real spiritual weight, you murmur, or if we just invented formal closure to keep ghosts from throwing soup bowls. She floats toward you, arms limp. You don't move. This is the dangerous part, the moment they decide whether to accept release or attack. Then she speaks. "I hated his cousin's hair," she whispers. "It was too shiny." Valid, you nod. She looks out over the city where the rain is beginning to thin and lets out a long sigh. Her form begins to scatter threads of pale light drifting into the sky like dandelion fluff. You breathe out. That's one less rooftop ghost and one less soggy, dramatic sobbing session for the tea house customers to explain. You gather your things, incense stub, damp charm, pride, and begin the careful descent. One wrong step, and it's you haunting this place. Downstairs, the owner is waiting with a cup of hot barley tea. She gone. "She's on to better rooftops," you reply. He nods solemnly, then tries to shove a small pouch of coins into your hand. You wave it off. "Just donate to the temple, and maybe add some chicken feathers to your rooftop tiles." He blinks. Why ghosts hate feathers? Too floaty. You leave him pondering that and step back into the misty street. The rain has become a gentle mist, the kind that makes everything shimmer. A rare calm. Then your satchel buzzes. Not in the literal sense, there are no phones in the Tang Dynasty after all, but in the spiritual one. A charm inside begins to glow and hum, pulsing with faint warmth. You pull it out. It's a notification scroll enchanted to activate only when a request is urgent and vaguely life-threatening. It unrolls itself in midair and reads, Widow Lee, latrine haunting, escalated, socks missing again. Please advise. You groan, loudly, not her, not again. You dealt with her last month. And the month before that, her late husband is the most passive-aggressive ghost in the province, refuses to move on, keeps haunting the outhouse, and steals socks as a negotiation tactic. Fang pokes his head out of your satchel, looking both annoyed and resigned. Fine, you mutter. Let's go get screamed at by a ghost over plumbing. You follow the curved alleyways back toward the residential quarter, mentally reviewing your sock appeasement protocol. You'll need talismans of very specific tea blend and a small offering of boiled peanuts. Don't ask why it's a ghost thing. As you walk, the rooftops glisten. The rain has left a pearly sheen over everything, and the scent of wet stone and lingering incense floats on the breeze. You pass a vendor selling joss paper shaped like horses and boats. You buy a small paper sock just in case. The vendor gives you a knowing look and says, Widow Lee again. You nod grimly. He offers you a free dumpling. It's cold, but you eat it anyway. By the time you reach your gate, the air feels charged. Not angry, just deeply inconvenienced. You hear the faint rustle of ghostly muttering from the back of the house. Here we go. Another round with the sock phantom. The gate to Widow Lee's courtyard creaks open like it resents your very existence. The scent hits you immediately, moldy tea leaves, stale sandalwood, and the unmistakable tang of discontented spirits. A bad combination even for a ghost hunter with a lead stomach and a tolerance for weeping portraits. You tiptoe past the koi pond, now down to one koi, and a suspiciously wide-eyed frog, and skirt the shrine tucked under the plum tree. That thing's seen better days. 2 incense sticks are burning sideways, and someone's left a single slipper as an offering. Widow Lee is waiting on the porch in full mourning attire, even though she's been a widow for 10 years, and he was barely 6 months into retirement before succumbing to dumpling-related heart stagnation. She folds her hands tightly, lips pursed, hair pulled into a bun that could cut glass. He's doing it again, she huffs. Socks, you ask already, pulling a talisman from your sleeve. And humming, she adds bitterly. While I'm in there, you suppress a smirk. Ghosts develop quirks over time. The longer they stick around, the weirder they get. Some collect teacups, some write poetry in dust. Her husband apparently steals socks and croons ancient folk ballads while people are on the toilet. Did you make the offering like I showed you, you ask? She scowls. Boiled peanuts half-shelled with vinegar. Of course I did. I'm not a barbarian. Where are the socks? She gestures toward a laundry basket. Half full, mostly left ones. You step inside the latrine cautiously. It's a standard brick structure with a clay roof, a flickering candle, and faint humming from the shadows near the pit. The sound is unmistakable, a ghost voice vibrato heavy and off-key, something between a funeral dirge and a dumpling jingle. Zhao Wei, you call out. The humming pauses. I brought you something. A breeze ruffles the paper sock in your hand. Ghosts like symbolic gestures, especially Zhao Wei, who always believed deeply in ritual and moderately in hygiene. You step forward and gently place the paper sock on the small shelf above the wash basin beside a faded copy of Filial Piety for Modern Men. Then you light a pinch of 5 fragrance powder and say softly, Your wife boiled the peanuts just right. Silence. Then a rustle. Then slowly a sock, an actual physical sock, floats out of the shadows and settles into the laundry basket. Progress, you whisper. Fang chirps once unimpressed. Now you say louder. Can we talk about you moving on? There's an afterlife with clean laundry, endless dim sum, and absolutely no cramped latrines. A low moan replies. You recognize it ghost for naught until she says she misses me. You sigh. She lit incense. Doesn't count. You step outside. Widow Lee is pruning her rosebush with what looks like a cursed shears. You crouch beside her. He says he'll stop haunting the latrine if you tell him you miss him. She scoffs. I tolerated him. At best. You give her a look. The kind that says, Ma'am, I have spent my day climbing rooftops in the rain, arguing with bureaucratic ghosts, and now I'm negotiating toilet truces. Please work with me. She sighs dramatically. Fine. Tell him. Tell him I miss his rice porridge and how he used to hum when he thought I wasn't listening. You step back into the latrine and repeat her words. The temperature shifts, the scent of vinegar and old socks fades, and the final sock floats gently into the basket folded neatly. A slow, whispery thank you trails through the air, followed by the sound of retreating footsteps that no longer touch the ground. He's gone. For now. Outside, Widow Lee is already back to watering her roses. Tell him, she says, without looking at you, that if he shows up again, I'll haunt him. You nod. Message received. She hands you a small rice cake wrapped in lotus leaf. It's her version of payment. You accept it gratefully. Ghost hunting doesn't come with health benefits, but it does come with snacks. As you leave the courtyard, a new breeze rolls through lighter somehow. The sky's even showing hints of blue again. You walk a few blocks before stopping to eat the rice cake. It's chewy and slightly sweet, surprisingly emotional. Fang nibbles a corner and nods in approval. You sit by a lantern pole and let the moment linger. These quiet exorcisms, the subtle kind, the ones that don't involve screaming spirits or projectile vomit, are your favorites. They're about people, about lingering feelings and unfinished words. And socks. You check your tally. Another ghost down. You're almost at quota, but no rest for the spirit weary. A distant drumbeat echoes from the market. Festival prep is starting early this year, which means more spirits, more hauntings, more paperwork. You dust off your knees and stand. Onward, Ghost Wrangler. There's always another haunting to handle, another dead guy with opinions, and another snack to be paid in lieu of silver. You're halfway to the noodle district, letting the sugar from Widow Lee's rice cake fuel your damp limbs when someone calls your name. Not loudly, not even clearly. More like a whisper riding the edge of your awareness, curling around your ears, like steam from a cracked teacup. You pause. The hairs on your arms rise, the wind shifts, slightly floral. Definitely wrong. That's when you hear it again. Ghost hunter? You turn already regretting it. It's her, Widow Lee's neighbor, the one with the pigeon shrine. She's leaning out of her window, eyes, wide lips trembling. It's back, she hisses. You raise an eyebrow. What's back, my husband? You sigh, the one who's been dead for 4 years and swore he wouldn't haunt you because he deserved peace. She nods rapidly. He's in the latrine again, swears he left his socks behind. You blink. Are socks a theme on this street? She opens her mouth, then closes it. He also wants his toothbrush. You should walk away. You should tell her that ghosts don't need oral hygiene, but instead you nod and follow her inside. Because that's your job. The latrine is modest, clean, and faintly scented with lavender. A single candle burns low beside a wooden shelf containing precisely folded towels and, yes, a toothbrush. Worn bristles, bent handle, still damp. The ghost manifests slowly, as if unsure whether this moment is worth materializing for. He's pale, wispy, wearing the Tang equivalent of pajama pants and a hairnet. His form wavers like a reflection in a bowl of broth. I just want my things, he mutters. You glance at the toothbrush, then at the ghost. Why? He frowns. It's sentimental. You nod. Fair. You pull a folded paper from your satchel blank. You ink a quick transfer talisman. It's designed to symbolically deliver possessions to the afterlife, normally used for items like gold bars or horses. Today, a toothbrush. You burn the talisman while reciting a modified chant. Tooth and bristle foam and plaque carry this to the other track. Fang cocks his head. Even he seems confused. The ghost watches, head tilted, then sighs deeply. I miss floss. I'm sure the afterlife has options, you reply gently. He fades without fanfare, as if a breeze just pulled his soul loose. The toothbrush rattles slightly, then stills. You leave the latrine and nod to the widow. He's gone. She beams. Did he mention me? You hesitate. He respected your towel folding? She wipes a tear. He always hated wrinkles. As you walk back toward the main road, your satchel buzzes again. Another spirit alert, but this one's flagged urgent. The marker glows blood orange, which usually means either corpse bride or angry ancestor with unsatisfied dumpling debts. You open the scroll mid-stride. Report graveyard on East Peak. Apparition in red. Screaming. Possible bridal threads. Property damage confirmed. Of course. You groan aloud. Not a corpse bride. Fang makes a noise that sounds like a tiny sob. Corpse brides are never simple. They're restless spirits of women who died before marriage, often buried in ceremonial red, still clinging to love unfulfilled. They haunt roadsides, riverbanks, and on unfortunate occasions, anyone who accidentally compliments their dress. You reroute through a back alley, passing a group of children setting off firecrackers too close to a sleeping ox. The noise startles the beast, which opens one eye, sees it's you, and promptly goes back to sleep. Smart ox. By the time you reach the base of East Peak, the clouds have returned, bruised and heavy, with a storm that hasn't quite made up its mind. The trees are quiet. The path ahead is lined with forgotten shrines and toppled spirit posts. You begin your ascent. Step after step, you feel the tension build. The air thickens. Not hot, but full, like something's pressing against the edges of reality, trying to bleed through. Halfway up, you spot the ribbons. Scarlet silk shredded, tangled in the branches. Some are singed, others stained. A trail of wedding cloth leading you to her. When you reach the plateau, you see her immediately. She floats a few feet off the ground, veiled robes, torn bridal gown, still glowing faintly despite the gloom. Her mouth is open in a silent scream. Her fingers twitch in the air, curling like claws around the memory of a bouquet never thrown. You kneel slowly, carefully, pulling incense and a lotus seed offering from your satchel. I'm here to help you, say quietly. She doesn't answer, but she turns her head so slowly it makes your bones ache to watch. Who left you behind, you ask. She opens her mouth and screams. Not words, not a voice, just fury, grief made audible. It flattens the grass, shakes the branches, and sends your incense flying out of your hands. You roll backward, talismans scattering like paper birds in a storm. Fang squawks and dives for cover. This one's not going to accept poetry and peanuts. This one wants something real. You scramble to your feet, heart-pounding robes, dripping from the sudden gust conjured by the corpse bride's scream. Around you, the trees shiver not from wind, but from her. This isn't your average lingering spirit wailing over a lost scarf or an unpaid incense bill. This is a storm wrapped in silk. She floats toward you, arms outstretched, the red veil over her face, billowing as if underwater. Her feet never touch the ground. Her hair slithers behind her like ink in motion, and her presence smells like wilted roses and old wine, a wedding long gone sour. Wait, you say, hands raised, voice calm. She stops, hovers. You reach into your satchel with practiced slowness and retrieve your mirror, not the shiny bronze one used for hair or flirtation, but the ritual one. Cracked, etched with a silver phoenix on the back, a mirror meant to reflect truth even if it bites. Do you know who you are? You ask, lifting the mirror just enough to catch her reflection. She glances at it. For a heartbeat, she flickers like a candle guttering in the wind. Her form warps. A child, a young girl, a woman with hopeful eyes. Then back to the bridal ghost. Her scream resumes, but this time softer. Fractured. That's your in. You press a talisman to your chest, the one scrawled with the symbol for echo, and recite the callback chant. Name to name, thread to thread. Come back from where the wedding bled. The mirror pulses faintly. She trembles. In the Tang Dynasty, it was not uncommon for families to arrange ghost marriages for unmarried dead relatives. A strange, sad ritual meant to satisfy social obligations even in the afterlife. Historians still argue whether these rites were acts of care or just bureaucratic tradition in spiritual drag. Whatever the intent, sometimes it went wrong. Sometimes the bride never consented. The wind dies, the screaming halts. She stands before you now, still floating, but quieter veil no longer shaking. She speaks, and her voice is like dry silk brushing across stone. He never came. Who, you ask? My groom, she says, eyes burning through the veil. He promised. And then they buried me in red. Alone. You swallow. Do you want to leave? I want to be remembered. That you can work with. You pull a long scroll from your satchel. It's blank save for a red border and a small inky plum blossom in one corner. You light a corner with a sliver of incense and begin to write. Her name, the date of her death, a eulogy brief and respectful for the one left waiting. Let no wedding veil bind what time forgot. Return not to sorrow, but to sky. You finish and roll the scroll into a tight cylinder, wrapping it in a red silk ribbon. Then you burn it. The flames don't consume it. They dissolve it. The smoke coils around her like a garland. She inhales once deeply, then exhales with a sound like a bell fading in fog. She fades, not abruptly, but slowly. as though each part of her is choosing one by one to let go. The final piece to vanish is the veil. It flutters down and lands in your palm, paper thin, weightless. She's gone. The tree's still. The silence that follows isn't heavy, it's clean, like the first breath after rain. Fang crawls out from behind a bush, glaring at you like really again with the veils and the drama. You stroke his damp feathers and whisper, "One day I'll get assigned to rice blessings and nothing else." You pack up your tools and descend the hill. Halfway down, you pass the shrine where the red ribbons began. You tie the bridal veil fragment to one of the branches, let it flutter like a prayer someone else might finish. You're not done yet. Not with the day. And definitely not with the dead. But for now, you've given someone a better ending than they had before. Back in the village, people are beginning to talk. Word travels fast. A woman at the tea stall nods to you. A young boy whispers, "The bride's gone now." A stray cat rubs against your leg purring, which you're 60% sure is a good omen. You sit down at a vendor's stall and order soup. Hot, salty, and slightly overboiled perfect. As you eat, you pull out your tally slate. 2 more ghosts to go. But it's already getting late and the sky's turning the color of old parchment. A storm might return, or something worse. But that's later. For now, you've bought a little piece and a bowl of soup. The soup finishes just as the lanterns begin to flicker awake across the city, tiny stars tethered to wood and paper, dancing gently in the gathering dusk. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, hand the vendor a folded charm in lieu of coins protection from minor demonic nuisances, his request, and step back into the settling twilight. Fang hops up onto your shoulder, still damp, but comforted by the residual heat of soup steam. You glance at your tally slate, still 2 ghosts shy of your monthly quota. Normally you'd panic, but tonight something feels different. The air hums with the kind of strange tension that comes before stories change. You head toward the riverfront district where old families have begun constructing paper altars in preparation for the ghost festival. The sidewalks are cluttered with folded lotuses, incense cones, and stacks of joss paper shaped like gold ingots banknotes, and new this year horses with sunglasses. Kids dart through alleyways holding firecrackers and sticks of ghost gum chewy sweets that supposedly stick to spirits' teeth and make them less aggressive. You doubt the science, but admire the branding. As you round the corner by the old herbalist's shop, you see a familiar sight, a street altar mid-assembly. An elderly man is crouched beside it, carefully folding a paper sedan chair with trembling hands. His daughter probably is beside him, her robes dusted with ash, her face pinched with worry. The man looks up as you approach. "Ghost hunter," he says. Not a question, just a weary statement. You nod. "Need help." He gestures at the paper offering. "It's for my brother. He died last month. We were supposed to build this sedan chair last week, but the glue wouldn't set and the wind kept taking the roof." You squat beside the structure. It's beautifully made if a bit lopsided. Crimson paper, gold trim, tiny paper lanterns strung along the sides. Everything about it says "send off with honor." Except something feels wrong. You reach out and touch the chair gently. It burns cold. A sure sign the ghost in question is lingering, watching, waiting for permission, or for a sign that it's safe to leave. "He died in his sleep," the daughter whispers. No pain. But he didn't say goodbye, didn't leave any instructions. You nod slowly. He's here. He's just hovering. You reach into your satchel and pull out the binding threads, red silk for connection, white hemp for mourning. You loop the threads around the chair's handles, then tie a knot at each corner as you chant softly, "Wheels of paper fire to sky. Let sorrow go and lanterns fly." The wind stills. The air thickens. Then gently a breeze picks up, and with it the sedan chair shifts. Just a little. As if something stepped inside. The old man gasps. The daughter covers her mouth. You light a long match and offer it to them. You should be the ones to burn it. They light the edges of the sedan chair and you watch as the flames race up the sides, not angrily, but hungrily. Eager. Gold and crimson become smoke and ash, rising in spirals into the darkening sky. For a moment the ashes dance, forming a shape, a face, a hand waving, then gone. The old man exhales, a sound that's half sob, half laugh. "Thank you," he says, bowing low. You help him up. He just needed a proper ride. He didn't want to leave on foot. They laugh even as they cry. You pack up quietly, no need to stay longer. Your job isn't to linger in grief, just to clear the road for the ones leaving it. As you walk on, Fang chirps once and flutters down to peck at a scrap of unburnt joss paper. It bears a tiny sketch of a teacup. You nudge it into a storm drain with your toe. May your tea always stay hot, Uncle. The streets are darker now, lit by lanterns and fading firelight. People have begun leaving offerings outside their doors, bowls of rice fruits, favorite snacks, and small notes scribbled with apologies or requests. The ghosts are coming, not the loud ones, not the dramatic brides or the sock thieves, but the quiet ones. The kind that knock gently, take a bite of dumpling, and leave the scent of cloves behind. You love this time of year. It's like walking through a library of unfinished stories, each whispering their final chapters. You turn onto Wisteria Lane, where the walls lean a little too close, and the lamps flicker in suspicious patterns. A young monk is burning a scroll at a street altar, his chant soft and hesitant. You stop beside him. First time he nods, say the last line twice you advise. Ghosts like closure. He bows deeply, then repeats the line again, this time with confidence. The flame flares blue, you smile. Better. Then as you walk on, you pause. You feel it. The faintest tug at your sleeve. Not from Fang, not from wind. From something else. You turn. A figure stands at the far end of the street, shrouded in mist. Not hostile, not lost, but familiar. Waiting. And the night suddenly feels longer than you expected. You don't move. Neither does the figure. The mist thickens along the street's edge, curling like incense smoke, wrapping the cobblestones in memory. Lamps flicker. The wind stills. And that presence, quiet but certain, just waits. Not threatening, not anxious. Just there. You swallow. Not from fear, from recognition. You take a slow step forward, your sandals whispering against damp stone. Fang is still on your shoulder, unusually silent. You feel his claws flex. Even he senses this isn't an ordinary haunting. The figure's silhouette sharpens, slightly tall-robed face, hidden beneath a hood that shifts in the breeze. No glow, no moaning, just that stillness. Then you see it in their hand, a scroll. Long, sealed with green wax, an emblem of the scholar's library of shadows. You groan quietly. That place again. No one likes being summoned to the library. It's not dangerous. It's just heavy. The spiritual equivalent of being asked to move your dead uncle's bamboo furniture. In the rain, in silence, while haunted books whisper insults. Still, a summons is a summons. You approach the figure who silently hands you the scroll. As soon as you touch it, it vanishes. Not burned, not stolen, just absorbed. The invitation is now part of you. Typical. The figure inclines its head, once then dissolves into mist like a polite sneeze. You adjust your satchel and turn back the way you came, cutting through back alleys and familiar shortcuts. Within minutes, you reach the outskirts of the Scholars' Quarter, a web of tea-stained pagodas, ink-splattered courtyards, and small signs that say things like, "Please do not feed the footnotes." At its center, the library. It looks normal enough from the outside. Grand doors, curved eaves, paper lanterns swaying gently. But even the casual observer can sense the difference in air pressure, the way silence blooms unnaturally here, pressing at the corners of your hearing. You step onto the library's stone threshold and knock 3 times with your talisman-wrapped knuckles. The door opens. Not pushed, not pulled, just aware of your presence. Inside, the light dims. You're greeted by an old man with no face. Not in a grotesque way, just smooth skin where features should be. He wears scholar's robes and moves like someone who hasn't had to rush in 400 years. He raises one hand and points. You nod. Second floor? Always the second floor. Always the worst section. You climb the stairs slowly, careful not to disturb the dust. Books line the walls, not shelved but bound. Some weep softly, others sigh. A few mutter in dialects older than the dynasty itself. Historians still argue whether this archive was built to house ghost-written texts or to imprison cursed knowledge. Most likely both. The Tang era loved double duty. You reach the reading room. It's empty except for a single scroll on the central table. It glows faintly and smells like plum ink and regret. You sit. You read. It's a record, an unfiled spirit case from 2 decades ago. A scholar who died under suspicious circumstances. A binding spell never properly completed. A margin note, investigate if time allows. Time never allowed. And now it's come back to haunt the system literally. The scholar's ghost has been seen wandering near the old grain silos, whispering verses about failed exams and unfinished wine. He's disrupting food blessings. One farmer reported that all his rice turned to ink. You sigh. Ghosts with academic trauma are the worst. You can't reason with them. They just want their thesis accepted. Still a job's a job, you pocket the scroll. As you leave, the faceless attendant bows. You return the gesture. Outside, the air feels clearer, but only because you know what's coming. You head to the grain district, arriving just after curfew bells. The streets are quiet, save for the occasional bark of a rice dog or the rustle of a too curious spirit. The silos loom like silent monks. You see him instantly. The scholar's ghost, tall, thin, a robe too long. He floats in front of a wall, reciting verses aloud in a near hysterical tone. Grain is memory, ink is truth. The moon cannot grade me. You approach slowly. Excuse me, you say. He turns. His eyes are tired. Deep. Ink stains run from his fingers down his sleeves. His mouth twitches between apology and outrage. They never read it, he says, voice shaking. They said it was too long. You nod solemnly. That's a real tragedy. It had footnotes, he says. I believe you. You sit beside him on the ground and pull out a scrap of mulberry paper. You draw the character for acceptance on it. A lie, maybe, but a kind one. Then you burn it. He watches the flame, says nothing, and disappears. No smoke, no scream, just relief. You exhale deeply. Another ghost gone. One more to go. You stand, stretch. Fang flutters to your other shoulder and dozes instantly. The streets are even quieter now. The festival is near, the veil is thinning, and your final ghost. Well, that one's a little closer than you'd like. The silence of the silo quarter wraps around you like an old wet blanket, familiar, slightly claustrophobic, and faintly mildewed. You've just exorcised an academically tormented ghost, your talismans are damp at the edges, and your back is beginning to whisper sweet complaints. One ghost left to fill the quota. And unfortunately, it might be in your own bed. You feel it as you enter your neighborhood. That heavy, pressing hum at the base of your neck. The subtle wrongness in the air. The kind of shift that means something is already inside your warded space. A personal haunting. The worst kind. Fang senses it too. He stiffens on your shoulder feathers, puffed out, making him look twice as dramatic and 3 times more judgmental. You rub his head. I know you murmur. We're not ready for this, are we? He pecks your ear in agreement. You approach your hut slowly. It looks normal from the outside. Stone steps, faded red talismans on the doorframe, a small clay jar full of protective salt by the threshold. But the door is ajar just barely, and the protection charms fluttering in the wrong direction. You take a deep breath, draw a fresh talisman from your sleeve, this one reinforced with powdered oxbone and insomnia, and step inside. It's dark. Quiet. Too quiet. The scent of old incense lingers, but beneath it is something sharper. Like plum wine that's soured. Like a memory fermenting in its jar. You light a candle. The flame gutters. Not from wind. From resistance. Okay, you whisper into the room. I get it. You're mad. Or sad. Or just confused. A soft noise behind you. A creak. You spin. Nothing. Then by your sleeping mat you see it. A figure. Pale, sitting with knees drawn up, long hair cascading like a curtain, no visible eyes, just presence. Familiar, personal. Your chest tightens. You know this one. You step forward slowly, not raising your voice. I warned you not to use that love spell, you murmur. The figure twitches. Remember, don't mess with the book of binding unless you want consequences. A whisper. I didn't think it would work. You kneel beside the ghost. The air here is thick with half-finished emotions, the kind that cling. You recognize the spirit now, Yin, a former client, a hopeless romantic. She'd asked for a ritual to draw back a lost lover. You refused. She begged. She bribed you with spicy dumplings. You sort of agreed. Then she disappeared. Her body found 3 weeks later, curled up beneath her family altar. You'd tried to forget that job. Clearly she hadn't. You're not angry, you say softly. She shakes her head. You're stuck. She nods once. You glance around your room. The wards here were supposed to protect you. And yet she found her way in not to harm, but to haunt. To linger in the closest place she could find to the person who tried to help her. You could banish her. You should. But instead, you sit cross-legged, brush a lock of spectral hair from her face, and speak gently, "You don't have to wait anymore. He wasn't coming. That's not your fault." She doesn't cry. Ghosts like her are past crying. But she nods again, smaller this time. You draw a final charm from your satchel, one you've never used. A heart-shaped seal pressed between 2 leaves of lotus parchment, meant for releasing bonds, not forming them. You light it. The flame burns violet. Yin watches it flicker, then closes her eyes. When she fades, it's like mist burning away in the morning sun. No sound, no drama, just absence. Your room is quiet again. You lie back on your mat. The candle steadies. The air clears. Even the little rice bowl on your altar seems brighter. Fang hops down and curls up on your chest, talons kneading into your robes. You let him. You're too tired to object. You glance at your tally. Quota met. Barely. And one ghost closer than expected. The last job of the day is always the strangest. The one that reminds you why this life chose you. Not because you're brave, or wise, or lucky, but because you show up. Even when they come home. You stare at the ceiling for a while, the image of Yin's silent presence burned behind your eyes. You don't regret helping her. You only regret not doing more. Outside, a breeze picks up. Not ominous, just gentle, like a sigh. You finally exhale. One more spirit sent on their way. One more part of your own story soothed, if only for tonight. You close your eyes. Just for a moment. The night isn't over, but at least for now it's a little quieter. You wake sometime past midnight, candle burned low, the wick drowned in a shallow pool of wax. Your room is silent, the kind of hush that presses gently against your eardrums. Even the frogs outside have paused their orchestra. Fang is a warm weight curled at your hip beak tucked beneath his wing. But something has shifted. Not ominous, not cold, just different. You sit up slowly. Your joints pop like old bamboo. Then you hear it 3 soft taps against your door. Not urgent, rhythmic, ritual. You rise, gathering your robe and satchel with practiced ease. Your charms are already looped on your wrist. Your mirror is tucked into your belt. You're not even fully awake, but your body knows the routine. Like a soldier or a baker, or someone who's been visited just often enough at midnight to not be surprised anymore. You open the door. It's the temple boy. He looks about 14, soaked from head to toe, holding a paper lantern whose flame miraculously still flickers despite the rain. "They're calling," he whispers. You nod already, stepping into your sandals. Of course they are. He turns and walks ahead. You follow. Fang somehow remains asleep. The temple sits at the far edge of town, nestled against a cliffside that locals claim was shaped by the elbow of a giant spirit who once tripped and fell into a mountain. You've never seen the giant, but you've seen plenty of the smaller spirits, feral nervous, with a tendency to steal rice cakes and chew on prayer beads. The stairs to the temple are slick with rain and moss. You take them slowly, the sound of your footsteps lost in the hum of insects, and the occasional distant howl from the forest. Halfway up, you feel the weight in your satchel shift. The jade crescent talisman, the one you bought from the spice market monk days ago, glows faintly. You'd forgotten about it. That's probably not great. By the time you reach the temple gate, the sky is ink black, pierced only by starlight and the orange glow of hanging lanterns. The monks are waiting. A circle of them, robes wet and eyes wide. In the center stands the abbot. "Ghost hunter," he greets you. "We have a right, and we require your voice." You blink. "My voice." He nods solemnly. "The barrier is thin, and one of ours has not returned. That happens sometimes. A monk dies during meditation or service and doesn't cross properly. Not out of malice, not even confusion, just habit. He keeps chanting, keeps sweeping, keeps pouring tea for people who no longer exist. You follow them into the temple hall, the air thick with frankincense and the ghost of bell tones. They bring you to a room lit only by 5 candles arranged in a spiral. In the center, a low altar empty, but for an unfinished prayer scroll. He didn't finish the last line, the abbot says. We think he's stuck waiting for it. You kneel beside the altar. You glance at the scroll. It's barely legible, the ink blurred by what looks like tears. You pick up the brush. You wait. And then soft as a breath you hear it. A whisper. Not a word. Just a rhythm. A cadence you recognize not with your mind, but your bones. You write the final line, your hand moving as if guided. Even the mountain kneels when the wind remembers. The flame of the center candle flares. A breeze not from any window ripples the scroll. And then, silence. A kind of silence that lifts rather than weighs. One of the monks begins to cry. You leave them in peace, slipping quietly through the temple's rear courtyard, down the side steps into the garden where camellias bloom in unnatural colors. The night is soft now, and you are tired. But the last step of the journey calls. A cup of tea. Not just for you, but for them. You reach the tea pavilion at the edge of the cliff, a simple structure barely more than a platform, and a wind chime made from copper prayer bells. You sit, you unpack your kettle, you set up the tiny stove. 3 cups. 1 for you, 1 for the ghosts, and 1 for the ones not yet gone. You pour. The steam curls upward, slow and fragrant, oolong with a pinch of ghost gum for luck. You drink. You listen. The wind carries no whispers tonight. Only breath. Only breath. Fang nestles beside the stove, sighing in his sleep. You close your eyes. This, you think, is the most sacred rite of all, not the burning or the chanting or the shouting on rooftops in the rain, but this, the simple act of sitting, listening, remembering. 1 more ghost was all it took. But tonight you'll stay a little longer, just in case another wanders in. The stars above stretch endless and soft, painted across the sky like someone spilled powdered sugar over velvet. You sit quietly at the tea pavilion's edge, legs folded, empty cup warm in your hand. Its heat slowly seeping into your fingers, as if to remind you you're still here. Still breathing. Not every night ends this peacefully, but tonight for once the spirits have decided to leave you alone. Maybe it's the tea, maybe it's the wind. Maybe they know you've reached your limit. Your satchel lies open beside you, its contents scattered in gentle disarray. Smudged talismans, a cracked mirror, a tiny red pouch of salt that burst somewhere between rooftops and rice silos. Even the jade crescent talisman, now dull and heavy, rests quiet. Fang lets out a low, sleepy cheer-up and flops across your sandal like a warm, feathered sock. You should go home. You don't. Instead, you let your gaze wander to the glint of candlelight on temple rooftops, to the silhouettes of spirit altars flickering on the horizon, to the slow ripple of banners swaying in the wind from the market district. Below the river snakes along the edge of town, black as spilled ink. If you strain your ears, you can just make out the sound of paper boats gliding through the water, offerings drifting to wherever ghosts are bold enough to gather. 1 boat catches your eye. It's unusually large, shaped like a tiny house, complete with doors and windows and a smoking chimney. From this distance, you can't tell if it was lovingly made or hastily constructed, but it bobs along the current like it's sure of where it's going. That's the funny thing about ghosts. They're not always scary. Sometimes they're just confused, sometimes they're waiting, sometimes they're just you on a different day. You breathe in slowly, holding the quiet at the top of your lungs, and exhale like you're letting go of something you didn't realize you were holding. The final candle burns out beside you. The smoke rises in a thin ribbon, vanishing into the dark like a whisper never spoken. You stand. Gather your things. Sling the satchel over your shoulder. Fang lets out 1 last annoyed puff before flying ahead toward home. You follow, step by step, down stone stairs, past a sleeping ox, through a city that no longer feels quite so haunted. And just before you reach your door, you look up at the stars once more. You think about all the ghosts you've met, the socks, the scrolls, the weeping brides, the unfinished lines, and the ones who never left a name behind. You tip your head slightly and say barely above a breath, "Rest well." You're not sure who you're saying it to. Maybe all of them. Maybe just yourself. You close your door gently behind you. The mat is dry, the candle's new, and for once your room is warm. You lie down, fingers still smelling faintly of tea and paper, and close your eyes just as the wind outside turns soft. You've made it through another day. A boring, beautiful, haunted day. And now you rest. Let yourself sink deeper now. Your body is soft, settled, and still held gently by the night, by the memory of the ghosts you've walked with, by the calm that follows a storm you didn't even realize was passing. In the darkness behind your eyes, the streets are quiet. The paper lanterns sway just a little slower. The temple bells distant and steady ring less like alarms and more like lullabies. The wind no longer carries messages, just rhythm. A soft cyclical hush that rises through the grass, brushes the rooftops, and flows over your skin like the last exhale before dreaming. Your hands are empty now. No talismans, no mirrors, no ink, just warmth. The spirits are quiet. The city is asleep. Even the ghosts for tonight have found places to rest. Let your breath mirror that stillness. In, out. Not forced. Just happening. If your mind drifts, let it. If you find yourself back on the rooftop or beside the tea or walking toward the sound of paper footsteps, let it happen. It's all right. The story knows where to go even if you no longer do. You've walked enough tonight. Soften your jaw, unclench your hands. Let your thoughts fade like candlelight curling into smoke. You are safe. You are warm. And until the ghosts come knocking again, you can sleep. Good night, Ghost Hunter. You've earned it.